we're going to move on to compound figures. Compound figures is the last segment of the first half of this unit that will show up on your mid-unit test. Compound figures are part of the measurement section of this unit, and we are going to be building areas and perimeters using a little bit of critical thinking and some skills that we learned in middle school. So compound figures are shapes made up of other shapes. And in order to do compound figures properly, we need to review some of our formulas. So we're going to have different shapes, different areas, and different perimeters. So the first thing we're going to do is a rectangle, like that. What is the area of a rectangle? Is length times width. We'll say this is the length, this is the width. The perimeter, we know this, is 2L plus 2W, or you can say 2L plus W. We know those are the same thing. The next shape is a triangle. Okay, if this is a triangle, that's H. This is the base. Remember, the height is always perpendicular. So the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. The perimeter of a triangle, if we say this is side A, this is side C, is just A plus B plus C. We don't have a fixed formula for triangles because the side lengths can always vary, depending on whether it is an equilateral, an isosceles, or a scalene triangle. Now, we have a circle. Now, we don't call them necessarily perimeter. For circles, we'd call it circumference, but it's the same idea. So the area of a circle is pi r squared, r being the radius if we have a circle. That's the radius. And the perimeter or circumference is 2 pi r. Remembering that 2 radius is the same as 1 diameter. So pi d is also the formula for the circumference. Now we could have what we call a semicircle, like that. And since it's half a circle, and that's the formula for the area of a circle, obviously we're just going to divide that by 2. And if we're doing the perimeter, we're going to have 2 pi r divided by 2, which in this case gives us this part. And then we have to add back in that part, which is plus the diameter. So let's do a little math here. It's going to be pi r plus d, or pi r plus 2r, which is half the radius plus that. So you can write it like that. Again, it's just a little bit of logic figuring it out, depending on where it goes in the rest of the shapes. So let's give it a try. Sorry, one second. Go. We're going to try this shape right here, and we need to calculate the area and the perimeter. So we're going to do area and perimeter. And this is how I like to structure them. I say, what is the area total? What shapes are in here? Well, we have the area of the semicircle plus the area of the rectangle. I could write semicircle and rectangle, but it's just as easy to identify them with shapes. Then I'm going to calculate the area of the semicircle, which we said was pi r squared over 2, which in this case we have, that is the diameter. So we have pi times 10.1 squared all over 2. 10.1 squared being the radius. Remember, radius is half of the diameter. And then I divide it by 2. And I'm going to get 160.237. Obviously, I'm rounding. And when I'm calculating this, I'm using pi on my calculator. Now, in grade 9, we do expect you to have a calculator that has a pi button, and we expect you to be using the pi button. Now, I use a general rule of thumb when rounding that at the end of the question, I will round to the number of decimal places that I was given in the question. In this case, there's 1 decimal place. That's what I'm going to round my answer to, if it's some long, complicated, never-ending number. So I have the area of the semicircle. Now I'm going to do the area of the rectangle, which we know is just length times width. In this case, the length is 20.2 and the width is 3.1. And I'm going to get 62.62. And then for area total, I'm going to add them together. So 160.237. That's the end of my page, plus 62.62 is going to equal 222.857. Now I'm going to round it, so my area total is going to equal 222.9 millimeters. What are the units? Squared. Remember, units of area is always two-dimensional, length times width. So I've done that. That's the area right there. Next, I have to do the perimeter. So let's look at the perimeter. And we're going to add these together. So I have a 3.1 over here and a 3.1 over here. So I have 2 times 3.1. I have a 20.2 here, so I'm going to add 20.2, but I do not have the 20.2 there. That's inside the shape. It's not actually an edge of anything. I don't need to add it in. What I need to add in is this half there. So we know that that doesn't have a bottom, so I don't need the diameter. That's just going to be pi r. The radius in this case is 10.1. I'm going to calculate that out. So 3.1 plus 3.1, because I have 2 of those, plus 1, 20.2, plus brackets 10.1 times pi button equals 58.13 with some zeros. What are the units? Are millimeters, because perimeter is a length, one-dimensional, so it's just millimeters. So now I have the perimeter as well. So I'm done both for that. Let's do one more quickly. So this shape, what you'll notice is it's not the addition of 2 shapes together, it's a shape within a shape. And these types of questions, we're always going to ask you to find the area of the shaded section. So the area of the shaded shape. So I don't need the triangle. So what I'm going to do then is I'm looking for a difference of 2 shapes. So my area total that I'm looking for here is going to be the area of the circle. I'm not going to add it to the triangle because the triangle is actually missing. I'm going to take it away from the triangle, so minus the triangle. Okay. Area of the circle, area of the circle is pi r squared minus the triangle, which is 1/2 base height. And let's take a look. One of the interesting things about this question is that it only gives you one measurement, which is this 16 meters right there. Do we need more than that? We don't. 16 meters is the diameter. So what's the radius? Is 8. Remember, the diameter is 2 times the radius. And the radius, so the radius goes from here to here. Remember that a radius goes from the middle of a circle to anywhere on the outside. So the radius also goes from there to there. So the height of the triangle is the radius. So this is actually pi times 8 squared minus 1/2. The base of it is 16, and the height of it is 8. So that's 64 pi minus, that's 8. 8 times 8 is 64. 64 pi minus 64 is 137.061. Sorry, 062. And I'm going to round that and say my area is 130. I've got no decimal points in here, so 137 meters squared. Okay. It looks like I forgot to round this one here to the 1 decimal place we decided on. So what would that one be? That would be 58.1 millimeters once we round it. So let's look at our final answers. One final answer there, final answer there, final answer there. What do they all have in common? They're all rounded correctly, and they all have appropriate units. Oh, I don't know if you can see that. Okay. So there you go. Let you copy that down. I apologize that my screen was covering it. So when we continue through the math there, we get 64 pi minus 64 gives you 137.062. Of course, that's rounded. And then I'm going to round it to the appropriate number of decimal places. The question gives us no decimal places. So as my general rule of thumb, I'm going to take that to the same rounding, 137, and the appropriate units, meters squared.